Welcome. I hope you are having a wonderful night. Tonight, I will be telling some terrifyingly scary stories. Make sure to leave your feedback on the comments so I can make this the best experience for you. And if you have any stories you would like me to tell, you can send them through the link in the description. I hope you are warm and ready. Let's begin. For context, I live in a very rural area in the Midwestern part of the United States, about 20 minutes away from the nearest town and about 6 minutes from the nearest township. For those of you who have lived in the sticks, you know as well as I that creepy sounds and sightings that make you second guess what you saw are commonplace if you spend any amount of time outdoors at night. It was 3:30 on a Saturday morning. I was driving home alone from a party on a small, lightless country road leading out of the nearest township to my house. There are two cemeteries. The old cemetery and the one that they still actively bury people in. These cemeteries are on either side of the road and are about 200 feet from each other, or roughly 61 meters. I had just passed the second cemetery and taken a curve into a part of the forest that was especially dense. No moonlight penetrated the canopy of the trees that reached across the road. I slowed down in case a deer decided to jump out in front of me, as was frequent in that area. That's when I saw it. There was a large dark mass in the middle of the road. At first, I thought perhaps it was a limb or a dog of some sort, but as my headlights illuminated the creature, I knew all too well that this was abnormal at best. There, standing in the road, was a large black bird, the size of a vulture or an eagle. However, it had no head. Now, as an educated hillbilly, I know fully well that when a bird roosts, it tucks its head under its wings in many cases, and that could fully explain this. That is what logic and reason would tell you. Although, I have never known a bird to roost on the ground, let alone in the middle of a road. I stopped my Jeep about 10 yards, 9-ish meters, from the bird with my headlights illuminating it. I sat and pondered the situation for a moment and honked to see if it would startle the bird into flying away. It did not stir. I sat for a moment longer, and this horrible sense of dread filled my soul. I then decided to drive carefully around the sleeping bird. I stopped and rolled down my window and shone a light down on it to get a better look up close. Instead of finding a tucked head, I looked down the bloody gullet of a decapitated specimen. From there, I must admit my terror was real, and I made haste in leaving this unsavory omen behind. The next morning, the bird was gone without a trace. As I recount this eerie encounter, I can't help but question the bizarre circumstances that unfolded before me. The image of that headless bird haunts my thoughts, leaving me with a lingering sense of unease. What could have caused such a macabre sight in the heart of the night? The logical explanation would be that the bird met a tragic end, perhaps the result of a predator's attack, or an unfortunate accident. However, the unsettling feeling I experienced tells me that there may be something more to this occurrence. It defies the realm of normalcy and delves into the realms of the inexplicable. Was it a mere coincidence? A twisted trick of fate? Or does this sighting hold a deeper significance? An otherworldly omen of sorts? I find myself questioning the very fabric of reality, wondering if there are forces at play beyond our comprehension. The sudden disappearance of the bird the next morning only adds to the mystery. It's as if it never existed, leaving behind only the haunting memory of its headless form. I can't help but wonder if I stumbled upon something supernatural that fateful night. Was the headless bird a manifestation of a restless spirit, a harbinger of doom, or an omen of impending darkness? Its abrupt vanishing without a trace only fuels my curiosity and unease. Since that eerie encounter, peculiar events have unfolded around me. Strange noises echo through the woods at night, and shadows seem to dance in the periphery of my vision. I catch glimpses of fleeting figures, indiscernible and ethereal, lurking just beyond reach. The air feels heavy with an unspoken presence, as if the veil between the world of the living and the realm of the unknown has grown thin. I've delved into local folklore, seeking answers to the enigma that has consumed my thoughts. Whispers of a legend, whispered among the town's elder inhabitants, speak of ancient curses, restless spirits, and dark rituals performed in these woods long ago. Could the headless bird be a twisted manifestation of that dark history? A warning or a sign of impending doom? My nights have become restless, plagued by vivid nightmares and a constant feeling of being watched. I can't shake off the sensation that unseen eyes follow my every move, and a chilling presence looms just beyond the edge of my perception. The once tranquil beauty of the rural landscape now holds a sinister undertone, shrouded in secrets and ancient malevolence. I write these words not only to document my experiences, but also to share them with others who might have encountered similar phenomena. If you too have witnessed inexplicable occurrences or heard the whispers of the supernatural, I implore you to reach out. Together, we may uncover the truth behind these unsettling events and shed light on the darkness that lurks within the shadows of this rural landscape. But for now, I remain vigilant, searching for answers and bracing myself for what may lie ahead. The mystery of the headless bird and the haunting presence it represents will continue to haunt me, driving me to delve deeper into the enigma that has gripped my life. I can only hope that by unraveling the secrets of this twisted tale, I can find peace and perhaps protect others from the sinister forces that linger in the darkness. The truth awaits, veiled in the unknown, and I am determined to uncover it, no matter the cost. I want to start off by saying that everything I've written down here is true. None of it was made up. I'm not a scary story writer or anything. I just need to share this experience with someone, and I'm afraid of how the people around me would react. Me and my girlfriend like to use recreational drugs sometimes. They're called research chemicals. On Friday, July 29th, 2022, we used some uppers. The ones we used give you a rush in energy but have no psychedelic or hallucination. Inducing effects. Had a great time and slept it off the next day, both of us waking up late in the afternoon. We had a good breakfast and Netflixed and chilled for a while. She lives in a studio apartment and has pet rats, so we can't smoke inside because they have sensitive lungs. The building she lives in has a public balcony, so that's where we went out to smoke about every hour or so. It was a small balcony on the second floor, with wood railings and a stone floor, overlooking the neighborhood. The building's rule was that nobody was allowed on the balcony after 10 p.m. We didn't really give a fuck about that rule, and neither did anybody else, so we'd smoke there in the evenings too. It was on Saturday night, July 30th, that we went for a smoke outside again. Must have been midnight. We were reminiscing about the day before. About halfway through our cigarettes, I suddenly heard a weird noise very far in the background. I couldn't quite put my finger on it, and since we were having a conversation, I tried to ignore it. It stopped after a couple of seconds. I noticed it stopped but paid no mind. When our cigarettes were done, we were still just standing on the balcony, talking when I suddenly heard the sound again, and immediately asked my girlfriend to be quiet. "Why?" she asked. I responded with "Shh." I was listening to what that sound was. And as it was now quiet, I was able to hear it more clearly. After a few seconds, I realized what I was hearing, and I felt a cold chill running down my spine, like my soul got sucked down through the floor. My whole face went pale. "I hear a woman screaming," I said. She laughed at first and jokingly asked if I was high on something. I told her to shut up for a second and really listen. She noticed how dead serious I was, and she turned her ear towards the end of the balcony, and as she heard it, I saw her face turn just as pale. "That's a woman screaming," she said. Our first thoughts were that somehow we had taken some really bad drugs and had some kind of weird shared psychosis after effect. We immediately checked if we had any symptoms of overdosing or after effects. No sweats, no high heart rate, no fatigue, no crazy thoughts. Both of us were able to think and talk clearly. We concluded that the sound we were hearing, a woman screaming, was real. The reason this struck us so was because it wasn't a normal kind of scream. It wasn't somebody getting scared or mugged or whatever. This scream was different. It echoed. It carried a hopelessness in its tone. It sounded so vague and far away, like it was carried to us by the winds. The screams sounded like somebody screamed their soul out of their body and into the sky. Both of us nailed to the floor. We kept listening in silence. Some loud-ass teenagers were cycling home, probably from a bar or something, and screaming at each other. Both of us could finally breathe again. Well, that was the logical conclusion. Just some loud teenagers, she said. I initially agreed, but when they were far beyond what we could hear, the screams came back again. Their sound even more desperate now. I did not hesitate and immediately called emergency services. I explained to them what we had heard and how it had affected us. They told us they're sending a police car over. We were outside in the parking lot near the main entrance, waiting for them, still hearing these faraway screams. The police arrived at 1:45. 2 officers and a female officer introduced themselves, and a female officer introduced themselves and asked us to explain in detail what we experienced. So we told them exactly what we heard and where we heard it from. The male officer didn't take it too seriously and tried to ease out of it by saying it was probably just mating frogs. Apparently, they make a scream, like sound when mating. The female officer took us more seriously and stood with us, listening, and very faintly, like whoever was screaming was running out of energy and time. We heard her again. So did the female officer. She immediately contacted the station and they set out a search and rescue. We were thanked for reporting this, and they left. For me, it wasn't done yet though. We sat back down on the balcony and kept listening. As we were sitting there, the night sky turned a pulsating blue from all the police cars driving around, trying to find this screaming woman. We sat there just listening to the continued screaming, hoping it would stop when they found her. Must have been about 20 minutes later, almost 1:30, that the screams finally stopped. My hopes were that the police had found her, and she was safe. But deep down, I had a feeling that she wasn't. That Wednesday, I was at my mother's house for dinner. She lives in the same town as me. During dinner, I told her what we had experienced and how frightening it all was. My mother stood up without saying a word, walked over to the living room, grabbed that day's paper, and handed it over to me. "Woman found dead under fallen tree," the headline read. I was shocked. I felt my eyes filling up with tears and said with a shaky voice, "I heard this woman die." Against my better judgment, I kept reading. The 47-year-old woman was on a midnight walk in the woods last Saturday night when a tree fell over and crushed her legs. Local authorities believe the woman may have survived for several hours before succumbing to her injuries. She had been dead for almost 72 hours before she was found. The police refused to share further details as to her identity or passing. There was more in the article, but I could not and refused to read it through my tears. I did not have it in me to share this with my girlfriend out of fear of how she would take it. But that's not the most disturbing part of all this. I live alone. And sometimes when I'm in bed and can't sleep, at past midnight, I can still hear her screaming. Sometimes my doorbell rings in the middle of the night. But when I go to check, there's never anybody there. I had a camera doorbell installed, and the only thing I caught on camera was the sound of my doorbell ringing. Sometimes I hear a weird knocking sound, like somebody is banging on wood. Stuff in my house seems to relocate on itself, such as clothing, food, and tools. My fridge door sometimes opens by itself. Whenever I look at my kitchen door, it feels like something is watching me. My cat Robin seems to stare at nothing in corners, and sometimes even gets a big tail. starts hissing at these empty corners. Ever since all that happened, my TV has this weird thing where it turns itself back on after I turn it off. It's only when I take the plug out of the socket that it stays off. All these things seem to only happen between midnight and 1:30. The most horrible thing is, I can hear her screaming when it's silent around me. I called my doctor about this because I thought I was going insane. She referred me to a team of therapists. After countless hours of talks and sessions, they confirmed that I suffer from no form of delusion, hallucinations, psychosis, or any other mental illness that could cause me to experience all this. But I still do. She still screams at me. Last night, January 2nd, 2023, I heard her screaming and banging again. When I went to bed and shut the lights off, I kept having this feeling like someone was standing next to my bed, watching me. And so I decided today, January 3rd, that I should write down this experience and share it in hopes that she may find some rest, in the knowledge that she won't be forgotten. Since we never got a name, I simply call her the Screaming Woman. May she rest in peace. As I finish writing this, I can't help but wonder what torments her spirit and why she has chosen me as the vessel to bear witness to her pain. The nights are long and the screams continue, but I am determined to find a way to help her find peace. Whether it's through prayers, rituals, or seeking the guidance of spiritual experts, I will not rest until her suffering is alleviated. In the darkness of each night, as the clock strikes midnight, I prepare myself for the chilling symphony of her screams. I gather strength from the knowledge that I am not alone in this haunting encounter. There are others who have heard her cries, and together we share a bond that transcends the realms of the living and the departed. And so I embark on a journey, a quest to unveil the truth behind her restless spirit. I will dig deeper into the mystery surrounding her tragic demise, reaching out to those who may hold the answers I seek. The path ahead may be treacherous, and the unknown may be fraught with peril, but I'm resolved to bring solace to the tormented soul of the Screaming Woman. In the end, I hope that by unraveling the secrets shrouded in darkness, I can bring closure not only to her, but also to myself. For as long as her screams echo through the night, I will carry the weight of her pain, driven by the unwavering belief that no soul should be condemned to such eternal anguish. May the spirits guide me on this journey, and may the Screaming Woman finally find the peace she so desperately deserves.